We have a free trade agreement with Australia. We don't have tariffs. We even have one of the few industrial countries. We have a trade surplus with Australia.
And with the UK.
So Ambassador Gore, can you explain to me
why the
how it helps America's national security or our trading balance when we have, and I love your fancy Greek formula, which was basically bad math on steroids, the formula, how with a trade surplus, with this strong relationship, Australia got hit with a 10% tariff as well.
Yeah, what the f***'s up with that, dog?
Senator, Australia has the lowest rate available under the new program. They ban imports of American beef.
Ambassador, excuse me. There is a trade. We already have a free trade agreement. We have a trade surplus.
Yeah.
So getting the least bad, why did they get whacked in the first place?
Thank you. I don't know who this is, but it is deeply sad to me that every single interview doesn't look like this. This is a appropriate amount of pushback, and she's not letting him control the conversation either. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I am hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the United States of America to 125%, effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Department of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. He's got to go. I'm sorry. This is just too retarded. This is retarded. This isn't, we're not even doing politics. This is like drama slop. This is a drama slop president. Somebody said he tweeted it's a good time to buy right before this. Is that actually true?
This economy would tip into recession have been steadily growing. A lot of people, including Larry Fink of BlackRock, were saying that many company executives were telling him that the economy was already in recession. So it kind of became this default scenario that we were in recession, and it would be only a matter of time before the data backed that up.
At what point does this become market manipulation? My friend, we are so far past even pretending to care about the answer to that question.
Mr. Trade Representative, are you aware that the tariffs have been paused?
I am, yes.
When were you made aware of that?
Well, I understood the decision was made a few minutes ago. It's
sitting here
under discussion.
Sitting here under discussion. So did you know that this was under discussion, and why did you not include that as part of your opening remarks?
So typically what I don't do is divulge the contents of my discussions with
What are the
President
details of the pause?
Well, my understanding is that because so many countries have decided not to retaliate, we're going to have about 90 days.
No, excuse me? China increased their tariffs on the United States. Trump blinked.
What's the blink, sir?
What do you know about this pause? What are the details of it?
Well, the details, as I understand it, is that China continues to retaliate. Other countries didn't retaliate. The president 2 or 3 days ago said we wanted to negotiate with those countries that asked for meetings. That's what we're doing.
What are the details? How long is the pause? How many days? How many weeks?
I understand it's 90 days. I haven't spoken to the president since I've been in
So the
this
trade
hearing.
representative hasn't spoken to the president of the United States about a global reordering of trade.
Yes, I have.
And
I've just been in the hearing with you, sir.
But yet he announced it on a tweet? WTF? Who's in charge?
The president of the United States is in charge.
And what do you know about those details?
Nothing.
Well, as I mentioned,
It looks like your boss just pulled the rug out from under you and paused the tariffs, the taxes on the American people. There's no strategy. You just found out 3 seconds ago, sitting here, we saw you.
we've been discussing a
If
variety
you
of
came
these
here
actions.
knowing that you were going to be turned off, that these tariffs were going to be turned off, why didn't you include that in your opening statement? Why didn't you reference that as part of your testimony?
Well, I don't disclose my conversations with the president, sir.
These were specific questions we asked you all along. What's the strategy? These are real consequences for the American people and small businesses. I had a group of small businesses in my office earlier today talking about the impacts of these tariffs on aluminum and steel. This is amateur hour, and it needs to stop. What does this even mean for your negotiating strategy? How are you in charge of negotiation if the president is tweeting about this from wherever the hell he is?
president was elected, and he runs the trade policy, and I advise him and execute his trade policy.
Who executes the trade policy?
I execute the trade policy.
Did you know that this was happening?
We have been discussing all kinds of
And there's another
options.
member of the cabinet, Bessent, who just canceled coming to the Hill to avoid talking about the market because it's in turmoil. This in just days, because there was no strategy, there was no plan. The president
all just memes.
Chose to take actions that he didn't even have the authority to take. He's put our economy in disarray and near collapse. We have small businesses and Americans who are concerned about their well-being, people's retirement, people's 529 accounts went down because of this administration. We have people that are planning to send their kids to college this fall. People who are retiring whose benefits have declined. Is this market manipulation?
No.
Why not?
Because the president can't be charged with a crime.
If it was a plan, if it was always the plan, how is this not market manipulation?
That question needs to be asked way more
It's
often,
not
by the
market
way.
manipulation, sir.
Well, then what is it? Because it sure is not a strategy.
The question should be, how do we know that the president or close friends of his, if you won't even tell us what he's planning to do, how do we know that no one else is acting on this?
Trying to reset the global trade system.
You're,
That has offshored all of our factories.
And what has that
and
done?
offshored all of
How
our
have you
jobs.
done? How have you achieved any of that? But to enact enormous harm on the American people, which was our concern from the very beginning. Tariffs are a tool. It can be used in the appropriate way to protect U.S. jobs and small businesses. But that's not what this does. So if it's not market manipulation, what is it? Who's benefiting? What billionaire just got richer?
This is Charles Schwab. It's not just a company, it's actually an individual. And he made $2.5 billion today, and he made 900 million. That's not bad, because he's in financials.
And all the while, there are not even any Republicans left in this hearing. They all left because they don't even want to defend this. But meanwhile, the speaker is rushing to the floor to pass a budget reconciliation to screw America by passing the biggest tax cut in history on the backs of the American people. WTF!
Why doesn't he just say?
Who's in charge?
He should just say the swear words.
Because it sure doesn't look like it's the trade representative. You just got the rug pulled out from under you. I wish I could feel some empathy, but the empathy I have is for the American people, whose very well-being and livelihoods are being affected. This is not a game. This is real life. I yield back.
Let the record reflect
Critical
that there's more
misspeak.
Republicans in this chamber than there are Democrats currently in this committee room. There's 6 of us, there's 5 of you. So let's make sure we get the facts right. I appreciate the president did not blink on China. As was said earlier, and it needs to be corrected in the record, in fact, he increased China by 125%.
Would you
Yacob.
yield, Mr. Chairman?
I do not.
Can we have a colloquy?
No.
We don't want to talk about the trade policy here in the Trade Committee. This is our jurisdiction.
Your time has expired, and I'm more than
I asked
happy to
if you
talk
would
to you.
yield.
And I said no.
Because you don't want to defend the policy or the strategy. Kick me out. What you gonna do? Kick me out of here.
Mr. Yacob, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ooh, you said kick me the f out, get me out of this place. Hell yeah. He said, what you gonna do?
Not the policy before then.
He also seems to be a great stock pundit, Mr. Secretary. Earlier this morning before the pause, he put out a message saying it's a great time to buy, and here we are. Here we are,
Well,
much higher.
I'd always bet on Donald Trump. Every time I'd always bet on
He
Donald
also
Trump.
wrote DJT, which is a ticker for his media company.
No. Every text
just
he
his-
does.
that was just his-
Every
okay.
text he sends to me, that's his name.
But that
That's
was a
how he
great
says
time to
it.
buy the market, right? I mean, uncanny.
Well, Donald Trump understands that America is the greatest country. All right, we are the greatest country, and we have the capacity for incredible greatness. But someone needs to take the shackles off. Someone needs to let our farmers sell corn to India. I mean, we had And
He's
it was
also
not the
a
policy
great-
before then.
He also seems to be a great stock pundit, Mr. Secretary. Earlier this morning before the pause, he put out a message saying it's a great time.
This was always the big concern with tariffs here also.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Consider exempting some U.S. companies, maybe some larger companies who have been hit hard in the markets the last few days during this 90 days?
As time goes by, we're going to take a look at it. There are some that have been hard. There are some that, by the nature of the company, get hit a little bit harder, and we'll take a look at that. Yeah.
How do you determine it?
Instinctively.
Instinctively.
More than anything else. I mean,
Nice.
you almost can't take a pencil to paper. It's
Donald Trump prepares to sell $2.3 billion stake in Truth Social. News of potential sale triggered an 8% fall, or 8%? Is that supposed to be like basis points? I don't know what PC. Oh, 8% fall in the company's share price. Nice, cashing out. Is this our U.S. trade representative guy? Is that?
I just don't get it.
Nobody does, my friend.
Fact on semiconductors, well, you gave a small exemption. You didn't exempt GPUs. You didn't exempt lithography equipment. You put a huge hit on Taiwan, where we need collaboration with the TSMC. I'm baffled. I mean, you're gonna hear from me what I'm sure you're hearing from most of us. Incredulous about, I think, probably the worst economic policies that I've seen in my lifetime. And the data reflects that. A global tariff of 10 to 50%, on almost every worldwide country. Although I will know from my Republican colleagues, you'll be probably glad to know that Russia didn't get a tariff increase. Yeah, I believe that when all these global tariffs go into effect, I think most of them as of midnight tonight, tariff rate will be approximately 23%, highest since 1909. I believe that'll translate into the largest tax increase since 1968. We've seen the numbers of about $4,000 per family cost. Since Inauguration Day, more than $11 trillion has vanished from the market. And I will acknowledge that we got a little blip today, but I just talked to one of the senior folks in Wall Street, and he described today's market as a good day in hospice.
Do we even trade with
Russia? His name because, there are no good days in hospice. But that's kind of how I feel. And again, I know you guys are supposed to know more than all of Wall Street, but when every firm says, we're going to see increased chance of recession, and Ambassador, I think you're a smart guy, but I don't think just because
Is this the worst economic policy since Smoot-Hawley? I'm going to be honest, I don't know anything about Smoot-Hawley in terms of why they did it. If I had to super guess, there was probably some naive thought at the time that if we tariff other countries and manufacture domestically, that it would help our economy recover from the depression. Maybe that would be my guess for why they thought it would help, and there just wasn't as much economic information at the time. But I would argue that this is way worse than Smoot-Hawley, because I think back then the markets were already having trouble before, the economy was having trouble before Smoot-Hawley. This is just entirely self-inflicted. There was no reason for this to ever have been done. So
this is the way Donald Trump wants the world to be for the last 40 years, that he can simply will it into happening. In my state, the Port of Virginia accounts for $124 billion in trade. That amounts to about 500,000 jobs. Those are all up for grabs now. We got 800,000 small businesses in Virginia. These tariffs are going to wallop them. I had last week a guy in from a local brewery in Alexandria. The owner's name is Bill. He's got a triple whammy. He gets his Pilsner from Canada. He gets his bottle caps from Mexico. He gets his kegs from Germany. So already, even in advance of these all kicking in at midnight tonight, he's laid off 10% of his staff. Even if the president flips on all this, he's not bringing folks back. I mean, candidly, I had another guy in from who makes bourbon and sells a lot to Canada. He thinks it'll be a cold day in hell before the Canadians start buying American bourbon again, simply because our trust relationship has been broken. So I guess the first question I want to give, I'm trying to figure out what would be a question that maybe folks haven't asked. Let me ask you on this one. Australia is one of our strongest allies. We have the AUKUS relationship, which is key to their national security. It's key to our industrial base, so we can continue to build subs. Terribly important. The interesting thing with Australia is we have a free trade agreement with Australia. We don't have tariffs. We even have one of the few industrial countries. We have a trade surplus with Australia.
And with the UK.
So Ambassador, can you explain to me
why
how it helps America's national security or our trading balance when we have, and I love your fancy Greek formula, which was basically bad math on steroids, the formula, how with the trade surplus, with this strong relationship, Australia got hit with a 10% tariff as well.
Yeah, what the fuck's up with that, dog?
Senator, Australia has the lowest rate available under the new program. They ban imports of American beef.
Ambassador, excuse me. There is a trade. We already have a free trade agreement. We have a trade surplus.
Yeah.
So getting the least bad, why did they get whacked in the first place?
Thank you. Thank you for just asking a real question instead of just letting him ramble on that talking point. Every single journalist, every single politician should just do this, right? Like, why, I don't know why people can't just do this. Why are we tariffing somebody with a trade surplus with us? Well, they have the least bad one. What kind of an answer is that, dipshit?
Nice.
We're addressing the $1.2 trillion deficit, the largest in human history that President Biden left us with.
Yes, you're addressing that. Aren't you just hurting yourself by hurting? Like, you're hurting the deficit. I don't even know which one he's talking about, but you're literally hurting all three of them. You're hurting your budget deficit. You're hurting your trade deficit. You're hurting your budget deficit because you're reducing the size of our economy and reducing our exports now because we have a trade surplus with them. You're reducing you're hurting our budget deficit because now we're obviously going to have more budgetary shortfalls because as revenue to the government decreases and trade decreases, economic activity decreases. And if you call the debt a deficit, I guess, you're hurting that as well because the debt's not going down at all either. And interest payments are still there. So you're hurting everything. You're just retarded.
We should be running up the score in Australia.
Ambassador Clear, answer the question on Australia. We have a trade surplus with Australia.
Yes.
We have a free trade agreement. Why? They are a incredibly important national security partner. Why were they whacked with a tariff?
Senator, despite the agreement, they ban our beef, they ban our pork, they're getting ready to...
That's part of the agreement. We still have a trade surplus. So think about what he's saying here. God, I hope this guy follows up because these are good questions. I hope he follows it up. Please, God, follow this up. So what you're saying is it's not enough to have a free trade agreement. It's not enough to have an agreement that both parties find preferential. They have to just accept every single thing mandated from the United States. We're not allowed to have any disagreement on any type of products ever. Every single country in the world has to have the exact same laws and the exact same regulations and the exact same world government, world order, dictations on every single thing they buy and sell. How stupid is this? It doesn't make any sense.
Impose measures on our digital companies.
With your Greek...
Also, think about it, what you're saying as well. Sorry. So it's not enough to have a trade surplus. They have to buy exactly from us every single product that we sell. They have to buy everything in accordance to what the United States wants? Are we basically just going to be telling other governments that you have to guarantee some minimum set of orders on every single product? It's so stupid.
Better formula, the fact that we have a trade surplus.
We have a global tariff on everything. We're trying to address the $1.2 trillion deficit that Biden left us with.
I think
that's
that
bullshit.
Sir,
that answer should get you Nuremberg. That's what he should say.
You're a much smarter person than that answer.
Yeah.
The idea that we are going to whack friend and foe alike, and particularly friends, with this level is both, I think, insulting to the Australians, undermines our national security, and frankly makes us not a good partner going forward. The lack of trust from friends and allies based upon this ridiculous policy that goes into full effect at midnight tonight
is true. That is true.
Extraordinary. I go back to what the market believers believe today is happening. A good day in hospice. I'm afraid if we keep these tariffs in effect, we're looking like an economy that will be in hospice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Daines.
What's the status of China? As you know, that's a big market for us in the Pacific Northwest. What's the status of discussions there? I don't see much progress. What I see is it looks like it's going to escalate some more and hurt our consumers and our small businesses in our part of the world.
Well, Senator, unfortunately, China for many years seems to be choosing its own path on market access. Again, they have agency in this. They elected to announce retaliation. Other countries did not. Other countries signaled that they'd like to find a path forward on reciprocity.
Why do they lie about this when other countries, the EU was literally, this was yesterday, but the EU had already announced that they were going to be, they'd either announced a decision on tariffs or that they were considering them. So
has not said that, and we will see where that goes. I think we need to work with our closest friends to make sure that we have trading arrangements that work. And if the Chinese are open, we'll see what. But they haven't signaled that at all. So I don't think that's in the very near term with China.
I just am concerned that there's no strategy at all. I'm committed. We understand in the Pacific Northwest what the stakes are. To have a smart, tough strategy. I don't see any strategy at all, and you really haven't said much about what the strategy is this morning.
Senator, I appreciate your concern. I want to keep having a conversation with you about this, but I see a distinct difference between those countries who have come to us and they said, we understand your issues, we understand the deficit, we understand your desire for reciprocity, and we want to work with you on this. And the Chinese approach, which has been, we're going to retaliate. We're trying to remedy a situation. We're trying to remedy a situation that's persisted for many years, and it would be wonderful if the Chinese agreed with that and wanted to persist and work with us on that, but that's not where they are. And the president has recognized this, and he wants to focus on other partners.
Let's talk before my time is up about services. The United States is a services powerhouse from travel and technology to finance and media. Our services industry account for nearly 80% of the U.S. GDP and 8 out of 10 American jobs. Other countries are responding to Trump's global tariffs by retaliating against American services. Can you explain how your tariff actions aren't putting our services exports at risk like so much of your trade policy?
Senator and Chairman Crapo mentioned this. We had India already pull down a digital advertising tax that affected some of our most competitive tech companies. We're already in conversations with other countries that if they want to have reciprocal trade with us, that's something that we need to consider as well. And we expect them not to discriminate against our services companies. We have some of the most competitive in the world. I agree with you. And to me, that's part of this calculation.
I wrapped up with the services question because it seems to me it's classic Donald Trump. Really good at talking about problems, even saying that there is some reason to go forward, identifying a problem, but pretty damn bad at fixing them. And there's going to be a whole lot of collateral damage in the process if you all continue with these trade policies and services and in other areas. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Could you talk a little bit about the relationship of the tariffs that you have put on and rising prices for the American people? What is it the American people should expect to be able to suffer as a result in terms of rising prices? I understand your position is that the long-term gain is worth the short-term pain, but what is that short-term pain going to look like?
So Senator, I think we can look at I think we should look at history and data for this. It's hard to project what's going to happen with prices, but we know in the first Trump term, the president imposed historic tariffs on China on an enormous amount of goods coming from China.
Not even close
and during that time,
to what was
inflation
proposed
went down
now,
by
but
0.1%.
good one.
During the Biden administration, the historic inflation was not on imported goods or related to tariffs that President Biden put in place. It was related to, frankly, services, healthcare, education, et cetera. So I think there's not really a one-to-one on tariffs and price effects, and so many things go into price. I know you think I'm.
There's not a one-to-one on tariffs and price effects. I mean, that's true in the way that there's not a one-to-one on like shooting somebody in the head and watching them die. But I mean, like they tend to be pretty closely correlated to one another. But
like dodging and weaving on this, but I'm looking at data, sir.
Yeah,
and
but
data shows it's not
I know you're smart enough to know that the likelihood is that prices are going to go up for the American people as a result of the tariffs that you put in place. Do you disagree with that?
He won't admit that.
I mean, when you say that,
won't admit that
in your testimony,
it's so
that
obvious,
you expect
but
the American people will bear the burden, or that, and I'm sure they will bear any burden on some level.
What is that burden?
What do you think that burden is?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Look like?
Well, I think the challenges, frankly, are going to be more for companies that are largely dependent on imports from China and Asia, where they have to adjust their supply chains in a quick set of time.
Yeah.
And the way the tariffs get allocated between the foreign, the foreign producer and the importer, that's where the majority of.
And we have a bunch of those companies in Colorado, and I know that Osprey Packs, for example, they probably don't want me to mention them, but I will. And in Southwest Colorado would be a very good example of that. I mean, they are very dependent on the supply chain from Vietnam, and they probably are really worried today about what's going to happen, which a lot of people are. I mean, I think one of the things about the situation we find ourselves in is the degree to which we've now created huge uncertainty in our economy, and I'm worried that is going to result in a lack of investment, capital investment. You mentioned some new investments that have been made in our economy, but I think that anybody who knows anything about the economy knows that uncertainty results in people freezing up, a paralysis, a lack of investment, which is going to make it hard for our economy and may actually provoke a recession. Could you comment on your concerns about that and how you're thinking about that? And I have one more question before I'm out of time.
So Senator, the best way to have certainty is to build in the United States, right? That's the best way to have certainty.
But that's going to take a long, long time. And what's going to happen in the meantime, do you think?
So, Senator, we have, I would say, dilly-dallied for years on this issue. We've done these broad studies, which are interesting and helpful that we talk about the Biden administration.
Right.
But we have to act. I can't sit for 3 years and try to find.
I hear you say that, but you could have made a different choice, which was to strategically target a geography, strategically target Beijing, strategically target certain industries where all industries in America weren't affected at the same time. You didn't make that choice. I mean, you're in the midst of having trade negotiations with 90 different countries at the same time, by your own testimony, all of whom can make their assessment, I assume. These are sophisticated people, about where the pressure points are on you, where the pressure points are going to come for us to not necessarily get the best deal because we're spread all over the globe negotiating every one of these agreements at the same time, rather than a more strategic approach, which would have had the benefit of giving us, I think, a much greater degree of certainty about where we were headed. Obviously, you made a different choice, and I'm just curious about how you think about your responsibility, how you think about that.
So I would note, and I think it's thoughtful to think about things in this way. If you look at the results of the reciprocal tariff, the Western Hemisphere generally is at the lowest tariff rate. If you look at where we have our largest problems with non-reciprocity and deficit countries, it's mostly in Asia. And so you do actually see pretty strategic outcome with respect to promoting production in the Western Hemisphere, as opposed to where we have all this overproduction in Asia that's given rise to our current problems on trade.
I would just say in closing, Mr. Chairman, that's true. What the ambassador said is true, but it still doesn't. I still cannot fathom why we are treating Canada and Mexico, our largest trading partners, basically the same way we're treating Beijing. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes no sense that we would do it all at the same time like that. And we're going to have to stay on it, which is why some of us have introduced legislation to make sure that Congress begins to take its appropriate role again in making these very important trade decisions. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Lankford. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Imagine if I had done any of this.
True. He's the best person to deliver this message. Oh my God. It'll never happen, but I'm trying to envision some fucking skit YouTube channel where fucking Obama and Biden just record skits of them doing any of the shit that Donald Trump has done. Holy fuck. It's just unbelievable. Oh my God.
Let me I just want to be clear about this. Imagine that imagine if I had pulled Fox News' credentials from the White House press corps.
bad example. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to use hard. Imagine if he had fired because the email investigation on Hillary's emails was under Obama, right? Imagine if he just fucking fired Comey like Trump did. Imagine he would have just done the exact same thing. Oh my God. There's like a billion examples that...
You're laughing, but no, this is what's happening. Imagine if I'd said to law firms that were representing parties that were upset with policies my administration had initiated, that you will not be allowed into government buildings.
Which security clearances are not politicized. People are trying to sell this idea that Trump coming in and revoking security clearances from people on political grounds, that's normal. That's not normal. Your SF-86 is not contingent upon your loyalty to whoever the current president. That's just not a thing. It's very fucking weird. And pulling security clearances from law firms can be, depending on the types of cases they work on, can be a death knell to the law firm. You can't survive if you don't have the ability to even go over certain types of cases or information. Like it's extortion. It's a racket. This is a racket. Because he's not even doing it because he hates them and then he's just like doing it to whatever bully them. He's literally extorting them for free services. There have been hundreds of millions of dollars now between at least 3 law firms that have been forced to donate pro bono services to the Trump admin for the Trump admin to rescind the executive orders targeting these law firms. It's unhinged. It's unhinged.
Government buildings. We will punish you economically for dissenting from the Affordable Care Act or the Iran deal. We will ferret out students who protest against my policies. It's unimaginable.
How many lawful permanent residents do you think were at the January 6th stuff? Imagine if Biden would have embarked on deporting those people. And he would have even had a stronger argument for it. It would have been a bullshit argument, but it would have been a stronger argument for it. They're actually attacking federal property. They're engaging in a riot where people have been charged with seditious conspiracy. Yeah, deport these green cards. He would have had a stronger argument for it.
That the same parties that are silent now would have tolerated behavior like that from me. Or a whole bunch of my predecessors. So,
or successor.
And
excuse me.
I say this not on a partisan basis. This has to do with something more precious, which is who are we as a country and what values do we stand for?
An awful week for jobless Americans, the economy, the stock market, and yet the president ended it by playing golf.
As the American economy burns, I am happy to report the president successfully completed his 116th round of golf.
Market's bad. Should our president really be on the golf course?
97 rounds of golf. The economy's falling apart.
The economy could enter into another recession. Now, the White House took great care yesterday to make sure the president was barely seen as he headed out on a big golf outing.
Most Americans seem struggling with the economy right now, loss of jobs, and they see a guy out on the golf course all the time.
Our economy is a train off the rails, and this president is busy golfing.
This is the Doral. This is the clubhouse. It's just beautiful. Trump does things first class, and I think that's why the golf world loves him, because he loves the golf world.
This has been an awful week for jobless.
Pretty sure Trump was golfing today as well, right?
S&P 500 drops of 5% or more at this point in a presidency. There are only 2 of them, right? There's Donald Trump, a 10% drop since he took office. The only one that matches it or exceeds it was George W. Bush back in 2001, a drop of 18%. This is it. This is the whole kit and caboodle since the
Was this for 9/11 or what was this drop?
S&P 500 was created as an index back in 1957. When you're one of 2 and we're talking about drops in the stock market,
All right. Well, what makes this presidential plunge different than all other presidential plunges, except for the fact that we reclined at this plunge?
Exactly right. We're right on the eve of Passover, so why not go with that? Again, we're going to look at these drops of 5% plus. What is so different about this versus the Bush plunge? Remember, it was the doc.
He said it was in 2007? Oh, did he? Why do they have 2001 written? Is that just when they assumed office, or?
Presidential plunges, except for the...
Right, that was happening before George W. Bush took office. What did Donald Trump inherit? He had 5% plus. What is so different about this versus the Bush plunge? Remember, it was the dot-com bubble, right? That was happening before George W. Bush took office. What did Donald Trump inherit? He inherited a bull market from Joe Biden. Donald Trump is the only one to take a bull market and turn it into a bear market to such a degree that we're having a drop of 5% or more at this point. This is historically unprecedented. What Donald Trump, one man, it seems to me, has done to perhaps my favorite stock market index.
My economic mentor, my mentor in all things, Christine Romans, used to say, yeah, but Wall Street is not necessarily Main Street. How has that sort of changed?
I mean, that has changed tremendously over the past few decades. I mean, what are we talking about? Americans who own stock. You go back to 1974, it was just 23%, either directly or indirectly. You look at where it is now. Now the clear majority of Americans own stock in one way or another, right? Their 401ks, their Roth IRAs, etc. And so what we're talking about now is something that is hitting the clear majority of Americans. What happens on Wall Street doesn't stay on Wall Street. It does, in fact, go and affect Main Street. And what's affecting Main Street right now is a record plunge for a president, given that he inherited a bull market and he turned it into a bear.
So what we are seeing one way or the other right now is a little bit of history, Harriet, and great to have you explain it all.
Thank you, my friend.
Don't worry, we'll be fine. Well, I love you guys. Be careful. We'll be back tomorrow.
Mr. Secretary, nice to have you on again. Are these economic experts I just cited wrong in your view about a recession?
I think they're not counting the factories that are going to be built. President Trump yesterday announced $5 trillion in domestic commitments to build factories in America, right? Remember, domestic production, GDP. People forget, if you buy a Toyota that's made in Japan, that's not domestic production.
That's just a lie, by the way. That's just a lie. There are many stages in manufacturing. It could be that for particular vehicles, last stages of manufacturing or parts of the manufacturing process are done here. Just because something or some parts originate from another country doesn't mean that there's nothing done in the United States. But
production is factories built here. So you've got $5 trillion committed to be building factories in America, and that's going to drive growth. If you divide that by our $30 trillion economy, that's a whole lot of growth, and you're going to get that starting in the fourth quarter, and that's going to drive this U.S. economy because it's America.
Starting in the fourth quarter, starting the manufacturing capital investment, the building of the manufacturing is going to be starting in quarter four. So they'll be online in what, 2026? 2027? So we're just supposed to watch all of our shit get fucked for a year, two?
American workers who are going to build those factories.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that because, in the past when Trump put in tariffs, there was Foxconn, right? He announced that investment. That didn't come to fruition. And what you are laying out, and certainly it would be good if there's more investment, but what you're laying out is this sort of manufacturing renaissance. But as you well know, for businesses, it's not so simple, right? They have to find the workers. Labor is more expensive here. There's concern that trade policies could change in the next few years. And then why invest all this money now if it's just going to change down the road? What do you say to those companies?
Finally changing U.S. policy to protect American workers is what Donald Trump is all about. So what you're going to see is factories going to be built here. Why should U.S. policy basically suggests that you can find the cheapest labor in the world with the worst labor conditions in the whole wide world, the worst pollution, right? No environmental rules at all. Let's go build there because it's really cheap and we'll sell it to the great American economy. How about we build it here? We use robotics here. It's cheaper than
now we're
labor
environmentalists.
Overseas. You're going to see something completely different. You're going to see the greatest economy in the world. The Renaissance will be the greatest factories in the world. High tech people. What are the jobs Americans are going to have? We are going to have mechanics who fix robotics. We're going to have engineers and electricians who work on these great high-tech factories. These are high-tech jobs. All you need is a high school education and training, and they're going to have great jobs, great
high-tech jobs, but only need high school education. So then we're not bringing back the great manufacturing jobs. So that was just a lie, right? We're not bringing back the great manufacturing jobs.
Paying, and this is who Donald Trump is going to build for.
And I understand this is your selling point, but companies right now, I mean, they're just not buying it. They don't want to risk putting all this money into doing what you said, especially when you're looking at a future of AI and automation doing a lot of the things you just lay out. How does this concept of bringing back this manufacturing renaissance in the U.S., which might be a noble endeavor for sure, square with the future of AI and really looking at that?
No, that's the whole point. So you imagine what you're talking about is all these companies who have their manufacturing in the cheapest labor market in the world.
Yes, you've said that.
Right, and the least environmental rules in the world, and they're being celebrated. And the time is to have those great companies who are great designers of products for America, bring it back to America. Use robotics, use factories in America, and they're all committed. That's what the $5 trillion is. Apple.
All those high schools, by the way, that just lost funding from the shuttering of the Department of Education, by the way, they just lost 10 to 15% of their funding from the Department of Education.
Remember, Apple last time they got an exemption and they didn't build. Right? This time, there are no exemptions. They're going to build in America. These high-tech factories are going to come to America. Remember, with NAFTA, we lost 90,000 factories. It's time for those factories to come home. It's time for the American workers to get employed. And it's time for Donald Trump to take care of them. Finally, someone is going to take care of the American workers, and his name is Donald Trump.
Right. And certainly, we're going to be tracking this, and I'm sure the administration will, to make sure that they actually follow through on what they're saying they're going to do. But in the interim, this takes long. Unraveling globalization takes a long time. This isn't just an overnight fix. And then the interim, prices will go up. You even hear from the president himself, there will be short-term pain. We're going to see in the next few days likely prices going up at the grocery store. What do you say to those Americans who put Donald Trump in office to lower prices, not raise them?
So energy prices down. They say. Interest rates down,
right,
your mortgage costs down, right? These things are energy. The price at the gas pump lower, oil down 6-7%. Why aren't you talking about the fact that oil and the gas pump is going to come smashing down? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security.
That's not even in effect yet.
That's not even in effect. Not only is that not in effect, that will never happen. That's not happening in the United States of America. That we're just going to arbitrarily also you if you think that should happen, that some people just don't have to pay taxes. We should be expanding our tax base, not shrinking it. Why no tax on tips? No tax on overtime? What, this is the most retarded shit in the world.
These are all coming now.
Because as you all know, Secretary, a lot of Americans put Donald Trump in office because they were unhappy with prices at the grocery store, right? They didn't feel like Biden did enough. They put Trump in office to fix that. In a few days, we're about to see prices go up at the grocery store. What do you say to those Americans?
I don't think that's going to happen.
You don't think
it's going to happen.
It won't happen?
Watch. No one can guarantee anything, but that's very nice. Thank you. I wish I could guarantee whatever you like. But the fact is, wait, let's take one moment. Wait. You asked me a question. Let's go through it, okay? Our farmers are blocked from selling almost anywhere. We can't, 1.4 billion people in India, and we can't sell them corn.
What's the name of the graph with all the squares? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Top U.S. exports, I guess. Or I want to see like all U.S. exports. Do we not export any agriculture in the United States? Is that true? The United States is the world's second largest agricultural trader, behind the European Union. U.S. agricultural exports and imports increased significantly over the last 25 years due to the economic ascension of many emerging economies, as well as the implementation of foreign and domestic policy that expanded U.S. access to foreign markets. Over the same period, the geographic product trade shifted as rising incomes and growing supply capacity of emerging economies reshaped global supply and demand for agriculture. U.S. exports of bulk and high-value commodities. This is all agriculture. And so it has only increased over time. Also, processed products. Look at this. This is your, I'm guessing this is your highest value add stage as well. Semi-processed is down here. Raw products is down here. Processed products. Look at that. Huh. Crazy. My face when I just lie.
Europe won't let us sell beef. Australia won't let us sell beef. Why?
Hormonal chemicals.
Yeah, no, that's not why. It's because they want to just protect. I know they want to say, oh, what, the seeds are different, right? Other people in the world are using seeds that insects. Come on, this is nonsense. This is all nonsense. What happens is they block our markets. When we open those markets, our volumes grow, our farmers will thrive, and the price of groceries will come down. Let Donald Trump run the global economy. He knows what he's doing. He's been talking about it for 35 years. You got to trust Donald Trump in the White House. That's why they put him there. Let him fix it.
I understand.
It's broken. Let him fix it. Our $36 trillion deficit, right, is going to ruin our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives. Let Donald Trump fix the American economy.
But just to follow up with you, when the first time he did tariffs, we did see prices rise on products that were
And
tariffed.
they needed a
That's according
government
to Goldman
bailout.
Sachs compared to non-tariff products.
We have the lowest inflation
manufacturing,
ever.
Well, inflation's just one thing.
Sector went into a mild recession in the fall of 2019. What gives you so much certainty?
Ooh.
And by the way, this is more aggressive and the economy is in a different place.
I'm sorry, what channel is this? Forbes? Oh my God. She's bringing out facts and figures, and she was careful to target a year prior to COVID so they couldn't blame that. Oof.
What gives you so much certainty? And by the way, this is more aggressive and the economy is in a different place with inflation and consumer sentiment. What gives you so much certainty that this is going to work and that this isn't going to hurt the everyday American?
The largest tariff and trade barrier country in the world is China. And they don't have inflation. So these things don't occur the way people suggest they do.
I have no idea if that's true or not, but I wouldn't trust anything this guy says.
Trade for the benefit of America. These people have all been living in our house. They've been driving our car. They come by and visit, open our fridge, and eat our food whenever they want. They've taken advantage of us. Today was the day.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. This is hosted on Forbes, but it's a CNN interview. Okay.
The beginning of saying, I'm sorry, you can't just live for free off of us. You have to pay. And what's going to happen is the United States of America will get stronger. Our economy will grow much, much faster than the rest of the world.
All right,
right? If you were going to say where we're going,
you're not going anywhere because we're going to continue
where we're
this
going is
conversation.
our markets are going to be up. And I understand that it's tough for the global markets, but our market,
the global
you should
markets,
be betting on Donald Trump and the United
global
States
markets are the ones having the problems right now.
We are going to do much, much better.
Okay,
I don't think there's any chance that President Trump's going to back off his tariffs. This is the reordering of global trade, right? That's what's going to happen. But the world should stop exploiting the United States of America. Let our farmers sell their products. Let our ranchers sell their products. They won't take lobster.
Do these guys know they're full of shit, or are they delusional? I believe this guy. I'd have to look at his background again, but he knows he's full of shit. These are all knowing lies.
In Europe or the UK. I mean, why won't they take American lobster?
Now they do. They didn't for a while, but now they do. But
They don't, because Downing Street said they're going to start, if they change their trade policy, they're going to start having lobster dinners in Downing Street.
Yeah, that is true. This is a great reset. Yeah. Dude, the projection was just unreal.
All right,
so that's what they told me. So the point is, let's let American workers succeed and prosper. Let's build factories in America. Let's let us export to the world. You can't really fight with the United States. We are the customer of the world.
Let me just follow up with you. And by the way, in August 2020, the EU did agree to eliminate tariffs on fresh and frozen American lobsters. Just quick fact check there. But hold on. No.
It's not tariffs.
I don't know who this is, but it is deeply sad to me that every single interview doesn't look like this. this is a appropriate amount of pushback, and she's not letting him control the conversation either. Every single person needs to be doing stuff like this. Like, you're just lying. You're just lying. Pamela Brown.
Trade barriers.
I understand what you're saying there.
Remember, they wouldn't Korea wouldn't let French fries come in.
Secretary, I understand. Let me just follow up because I want to just be very clear here, because allies and adversaries alike are looking at everything you're saying right now about whether there's room to negotiate on these tariffs before they announce what they're going to do.
If they know they're lying, do they not care about their legacy? Who knows? With advancements in robotics and AI, won't all these imagined manufacturing jobs get automated in the future anyway, so factory owners will gain money and poor people have no jobs? This is actually evil. Yeah, that's basically what's happening, yeah. More concentration into the power of capital and the ultra-wealthy elite.
What I hear from you is that there isn't room for negotiation. Is that right? You said that the president won't back off.
What I said very clearly, the president is not going to back off.
So he's not going to back off of what he announced yesterday.
He is not going to back off. He is not backing off.
Nothing could change that.
But countries can fix their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers, which are much, much rougher. That's why the story I was trying to tell you is that when we took cars from Korea in 2012, when I grew up, there was no Korean cars in America. When we took cars from Korea, the deal was we could sell ag to Korea. That was the deal. They wouldn't let McDonald's bring in French fries because they couldn't prove the origin of the French fry. That is not a tariff. That is called a non-tariff trade barrier. They take their taxes and they subsidize their steel industry, or they subsidize their energy, or they subsidize...
You also need to understand that the United States, in some ways, if we're being honest, okay, the United States kind of doesn't give a fuck what the world order says, because the United States dictates the world order. So, for instance, we would say that war crimes and preventing people from doing like abhorrent stuff like war crimes is really bad, and it's good to avoid that from happening. However, the United States does not submit itself to the jurisdiction of the ICC. The United States explicitly says that if the International Criminal Court were to ever arrest somebody as part of the U.S. military for a war crime, the United States will invade The Hague and we will get our soldiers back. I think it's literally called the Hague Act. So while this is true, that the United States to some extent like plays kind of cutesy with the whole like, well, listen, you know, world order and all that is important, but you know, we're just chill when you apply it to us. Even though being honest, even though the United States is a little bit cutesy when it comes to that, the United States has a vested interest in maintaining at least some semblance of there is a real world order that actually works and actually functions. So that means that if you have a trade problem, okay, you go to the WTO to solve it, or you negotiate it. You don't engage in insane trade policy like what the US is doing right now. The reason being that the only way law and order works, or the only way a rules-based system works, is if everybody thinks that they're subject to the same rules, more or less. And most people kind of do. But if the United States is literally just going to come out and do like insane shit and get away with it, everybody sees it, at some point there's going to be no incentive to follow any sort of international rules-based order like this, because who the fuck cares? I see it's going two ways. Either one, it creates such a turn in the political tides, it gives us power to fix things before things get really fucking bad, or we're genuinely ruined thoughts. I personally, right now, and I don't know, maybe it's some ungodly amount of copium, I think it's good what's happening right now. Because I think that we will, I think this is too much, I think this is too much. And I think that Americans won't be able to stomach this, and I think you're going to start to see some fracturing. So technically, I think this is probably good of all the things that could happen. Remember what I said before, Trump can get away with a lot of shit that sounds disgusting. Like, in my opinion, it's really hard to measure this, but I think I would still almost say, or I think I actually would still say that the deportation of people without due process, I think is actually worse than all these tariffs that are happening right now. Even though these tariffs are just unfucking believable, I still think that's probably worse. But Americans don't give a fuck about Venezuelans or brown people or law shit because it's too complicated and who the fuck cares, right? But Americans will care about shit like this. So like I said, they're not going to go after Social Security or Medicare because they're going to destroy their electoral chances, because as soon as Americans start to feel the negative effects of this administration, enough will turn. Remember, it doesn't have to be all of MAGA. It doesn't have to be your most hardcore MAGA friends and family. It just has to be a couple points, a couple percentage points of people in the middle or like in the center right. And the problem is that even Ted Cruz, who's like one of Trump's most loyal nut huggers, even Ted Cruz was saying it's going to be a fucking bloodbath in the midterms if this keeps up.
Or they give the tax back to their car manufacturer. Right. This stuff has got to stop. America's got to stop being exploited, and you're going to see America prosper. And then, and only then, will Donald Trump make a deal with each country when they've really, really changed their ways. Then
so it sounds like he might back off down the road.
Yeah, but that's 4 years away, or even 2 years for midterms. You can nuke America's future if these tariffs stay in for even 3 months, alone 2 years. Sure, but there's a chance that we come out of this with people saying like, hey, actually, democracy and everything is actually really good, and maybe there is some value to protecting the system, right? Like after World War II, I think we were pretty chill around the world for a while. Like arguably, the impact of World War II, you can argue was good for a rules-based world order, you know? Or arguably, this is a bullshit argument that I give, and I don't know, maybe somebody better versed in history could tell me I'm wrong, but I actually think that the nuking of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where the destructive power of them was set immediately and a taboo around them began, rather than the first time a nuclear weapon was used, was some massive exchange of hundreds of nuclear weapons, right? So maybe, you know, this is our Hiroshima and Nagasaki moment in terms of what does an actual populist, fascist, authoritarian leader look like. Now maybe we shouldn't do that. Hopefully.
Road, but
that's
not right now.
Back off, and that's not back off. That is let the deal maker.
Jen Kelly, I'll listen to that next. Thanks.
Make his deals when and only if these countries can change everything about themselves, which I doubt they will. Because
so he is willing to negotiate then. So he is willing to negotiate with these countries right now, or if they decide to
talking, no talking, doing. These countries have abused us and exploited us, as he said yesterday. They need to change their ways.
Let me follow up with you.
Let's see them change their ways. It's going to be a long time. Let's see what they do. Not talking. Okay. Talking is nonsense.
Let me follow up, because Germany's economic minister says President Trump will, quote, buckle under pressure if Europe hits back. Given the president's history of making threats and then backing off, why should foreign leaders think?
Nancy Pelosi clip supporting tariffs in 1996. I don't even know what clip you're talking about. I don't give a fuck. There are like 50 different ways that I could respond to whatever you're showing that would make it completely irrelevant. One is that 1996 is a lot different than the time period we're in now. Two is I would probably still just disagree with it, so I don't know what that has to do with anything. Three, I seriously doubt she's supporting the insanely broad tariffs like Donald Trump is doing. Four, I doubt she was saying that the president should do these things unilaterally after falsely declaring a state of emergency. Five, I doubt that she's saying that we should give a fake cause for these tariffs like we've done with Canada and Mexico. Yeah, 6, I doubt it was with the massive plan of reshoring every single manufacturing. Like, it's just, whatever you're talking about, I know there's no comparison, so.
think he'll stand firm this time?
Donald Trump is going to stand firm because he is reordering global trade. Make no mistake about it, America has been exploited, and he is done allowing America to be exploited. And no amount of the exploiters trying to swing harder at us after they've exploited us for all these years is going to change Donald Trump's view. What they can do is they can stop exploiting us. How about try that? And the arrogance of saying, I've taken advantage of you for decades, and not only saying, I understand that you're fixing it, I'm disappointed that the gig is up and I can't take advantage of you anymore, right? And I'm disappointed instead if you're angry and you fight back to the greatest customer in the world, you're going to lose. We are the sumo wrestler of this world. We are the biggest.
Are these Russian bots in my chat? Did you see the viral speech from Pelosi in 1996? Basically the same as Trump, I'm sure.
economy, the biggest customer. You can't fight back against your customer.
Very quickly, the dollar is weakening. Is that part of the strategy here? As you know, some economists say that is what the administration is trying to do here, weaken the dollar.
Donald Trump called out currency manipulation. Technically, right, you would think the dollar would rally on this kind of thing. But why is it falling? Because Donald Trump said, stop manipulating your currency.
Are you happy?
Well, if the world stops manipulating the currency, right, then the dollar gets cheaper. Our ability to export is better. It's easier. I
actually cannot believe that I'm hearing this. This is the first time in my entire life I've actually heard somebody say this. And I've said this before. I've argued this a lot in chat where people think that having a strong currency is always a good thing. It's not necessarily. It really depends on what your economic goals are. A strong currency is good in that it gives you the ability to buy a lot, especially from other countries, but it hurts your ability to export a bit because competing with your own currency can be challenging, right? If I go to fly to Argentina, I could buy a meal for $2. The exchange rate is really strong. The currency is weaker, gives you the ability technically to export a little bit more because now foreign currency is stronger in your own markets, but it hurts your ability to import products. It's so funny because people always assume a strong currency is just better in every single way. That's not necessarily true. However, you never would have heard a conservative or a Trump or anybody arguing that having a weaker dollar is good. But it's funny to hear that economic argument wheeled out right now while they're trying to destroy the world economy.
The dollar gets cheaper. Our ability to export is better. It's easier. Our people.
So this is part of the strategy.
Well, stop manipulating, right? The dollar was just bolstered up by these economies because they were faking it. It's got to stop. We need to be treated fairly. Thank God we've got Donald Trump in the White House. He's finally going to treat America fairly. He's going to finally treat American workers fairly. This is the biggest change you're ever going to see because you have the right guy in the White House doing the right things, protecting American workers.
So it is true. It's a strategy to weaken the dollar.
It's not a strategy to weaken the dollar. It's a strategy.
I love, what was that, the third time that she asked that question? You said she's asking the same question over and over and over and over again. What was her name? This is a good interviewer.
Plan. It's part of the plan.
It is not a plan. We don't have a plan about the dollar.
We don't have a plan.
We have a plan about American workers. We have a plan about American factories. And these are all outcomes of stop you manipulating our currency. Stop it. Okay. And if that means the dollar goes back to where it should be because you've stopped manipulating it, it makes sense to me.
He gave us the right to speak freely, to publish freely, to worship freely, to assemble freely, and to petition government for a redress of grievances. As Dr. King said, we've got the right to protest for what is right without being arrested, deported, or fired. We got the right to read the books we want, including 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale, even if they now belong in the nonfiction section. We've even got the right to call the president deranged for crashing our economy, destroying $6 trillion of wealth and turning my 401k into a 201k.